Hello and welcome. I'm Lorianne Lumby with Authentic Freedom Academy, and today is Friday, January 8th, 2021. And this recording is in lieu of our typical Friday service that just ended up being two of us, and we chatted about things instead of doing a service. So I wanted to make sure that everyone had something that might provide, I don't know, some information, inspiration, comfort, comfort, comfort. So before we begin, I invite you to close your eyes and let's take a few moments in silence to bring ourselves into this space and into this remote sharing. So I invite you to close your eyes. And I'm feeling a deep call for all of us to enter into our heart space. That energetic space that surrounds our heart, that is the seat of our soul, and is also the guidance system and compass for our highest self. It is critical at this time that we do what we are able to stay centered in the heart. So let us breathe into and out from that space for a few moments in silence as we arrive in this space and come together in community for support, encouragement, comfort. I'm going to share with you today this mantra of transformation, of comfort, a mantra that calms our fears and facilitates our own healing. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orva Rukamiwa Bandhanan Mrichor Mokshiha Mamritate. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orva Rukamiwa Bandhanan Mrichor Mokshiha Mamritate. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orva Rukamiwa Bandhanan Mrichor Mokshiha Mamritate. Thank you for being present here today at the end of a very tumultuous week. And I join you here today from a place of fragility. I feel really fragile and vulnerable, as I'm sure many of us in this community do. For me, this week began with a fallout about which I'm not at liberty to share. And from that fallout, I found myself moving deep, deep, deep into the depths where I work best. The depths that some might call darkness. In my shamanic journey work, I have come to call it the underworld. And depending on what part of that underworld, in what part of that underworld I find myself, it's either a place of rest or receiving, or in this particular case, it was working and transforming some pretty deep areas of woundedness, not only within myself, but also, I guess, in service to the world. As I mentioned in Sunday's email, my plan for today was to unfold some practices for freeing ourselves from and releasing parasitic energies. And that's a topic that might have to wait. Because certainly we found ourselves on Wednesday here in the US in the middle of a profoundly dramatic outpouring of parasitic energies. I want to preface what I'm about to say with an understanding that I know and understand the full extent of the corruption in the American government. And I know that there is not a side that is innocent. We all have frustration, impatience, anger over the ways in which perhaps our own personal needs or the needs about whom we care are not being met by the current system. We all understand that frustration, and we understand the anger, the resentment, the rage that can come forth when we feel unheard, unseen, unrecognized, or unacknowledged. When our cries to get our needs met are either met with ridicule, condemnation, or just flat out ignored. where we're told that we don't have a right to ask for support in getting those needs met. These are things that we all understand. And that frustration, that hurt, that anger does not give us a right to stage a coup, interfere with a government process, or inflict violence, potential harm, or the intent to harm on other human beings. I was not surprised by what we witnessed on Wednesday. In fact, I've known for a long time it was coming. Not because I'm connected with some sort of fascist organization, but because my own intuition, my dreams, my visions, my understanding of how things unfold or will unfold if the current path is continued. And it was obvious to me that as the path of the last few years has unfolded, that there was no doubt it was leading to something like this. Because when children are allowed to misbehave, when children are encouraged to wreak havoc, that's exactly what they will do. And beyond political affiliation or beliefs, and beyond pointing fingers of blame, what we saw on Wednesday was the inappropriate and unthinkable action of immature, adults suffering from severe arrested development, and in some cases, outright narcissism. These actions on Wednesday were horrifying to watch. I was able to sit through about 3 hours of the news as it unfolded. And like several others who reached out to me on that day and who have reached out to me since, I don't remember feeling that much dread, horror, or fear since 9/11. I wasn't afraid, per se, of the actions of the individuals. I was afraid for our nation. And beyond the self-centered rhetoric of the United States, I was afraid for our world. So I have sat with this unfolding and witnessed, I guess, the fallout. A fallout that's not over, that I will clearly say. I don't believe that this level of violence has ended with Wednesday's event. I fear for the safety of our elected officials, in particular. I am holding in deep prayer an intention for safety and protection for our president and vice president elect. The Proud Boys, as they call themselves, and their friends are not done. But all of that notwithstanding, again, these are symptoms of a world in a nation in the midst of its collapse. These are the symptoms of a nation in the midst of its own collapse. But one of the unbearable consequences of these events has been the excruciating chasm of division that has surfaced in our nation. And I apologize to those who are here in Circle that are not from or living in the US. And I invite your witness and your prayers, because the very sad reality is what happens here does have an impact on other places in the world. And we in the United States are not alone in being made to bear witness to the shadow of our culture. In truth, we have been dodging this bullet for a long ass time, as we have watched other nations struggle and buckle and become destroyed because of this demon of separation. When it is revealed that people that we once cared about are cheering on acts of sedition, are promoting and encouraging domestic terrorism, that in and of itself is enough to bring us to our knees. But when that separation is present within our own families, our friendships, our acquaintances, our business associates, how do we come back from that? How do we find our way to what every spiritual tradition holds out as an ideal? how do we come back to, or how do we even begin the journey towards healing, transformation, and reconciliation? In this moment, I don't have an answer to that question. Because, to be very honest and blunt, I am disgusted. Disgusted that any human being would act this way. That any human being would advocate terrorism or terroristic acts. That any human being would hate another human being so much that they would want to cause harm, or worse yet, take their life. That is not a world I understand, and it is not a world that I want to be a part of. To me, the human condition is simple. And Jesus said it so simply. Love one another. Period. Love one another. I would expand on that, as Jesus so aptly did in Scripture and by his own example. What does that mean to love one another? The first thing that comes to mind is that in order to love another human being, we first have to know how to love ourselves. And perhaps that's what's missing in our world. Are we a species that has forgotten how to love? Are we a species that has forgotten that we are love? Have we forgotten our value, our individual contribution, our unique giftedness, the sacred, holy self that dwells within every single human being? More importantly, have we forgotten that about ourselves? Because if we do not understand and celebrate our own sacredness, if we do not know love in our hearts, then how can we be love to another? And perhaps that is the center of all of it. Thousands upon millions, perhaps billions of human beings who do not know love. And when we don't know love, it's easy to take out our fears, our unmet needs, to take that out on others. When we hate ourselves, it is easy to point the finger of projection at someone else. Not as the cause of our hatred, but when we hate ourselves, we have to hate others. Because how could we ever admit, oh, I really kind of hate myself? Instead of acknowledging that deep woundedness within ourselves, we seek someone else to hate. We seek out someone else to blame for our discontent, our unhappiness, our frustration. Because the other side of that is a human being that lives in love and knows love. And that kind of human being, you don't have to tell or instruct or guide or shame them into being kind. Caring about the needs of others. Wanting to be a source of support for those whose needs are not being met. When we know love, we never have to be asked to be a good human being. And to be, again, perhaps that's the core of it. Love is what we are missing in our world. Love is what we are called to anchor within ourselves. And love is what we are invited to hold out as an invitation for others. Now, the very real sad truth of that is that many to whom we offer our love will not be able to receive it. The level of someone's ability to receive love, compassion, and care is proportionate to the degree in which they know love within themselves. And as a closing to this message, I want to share with you the words that Ainka of this community shared with me today. And the words are, "For God so loved the world." For God so loved the world. For God so loved the world. These are the words that we can hold close to our heart when we find ourselves grieving this division. These are the words that we can hold in our heart when we are tempted to judge those who are inflicting acts of violence. These are the words that we can hold in our heart in knowing that the most violent, seeming hateful human being is still loved by God. And the even deeper invitation is the question: how can we allow ourselves to love even that which we want to hate?